Hello everyone, it's Mr. Wolf here, and in this video we're going to be working with using models, our scientific practice of using models specifically to determine inheritance. And our intro scenario is going to be on lactose intolerance. And so on this worksheet, there is a video, make sure to watch from 132 to 428, but we're going to get right into the problem. And by the way, thus far we've worked with Punnett squares, we've worked with vocab, and we've worked with pedigrees, and our goal now is to bring all these things together to solve real world problems. For an example, what a genetic counselor might do in the beginning stages of seeing a patient or a client. All right. So in this background, it tells us that, again, it's not here, but it is on your worksheet, is that Ali, who is a male, and Veronica, who's a female, are about to have a child. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off and draw Ali a little bit further down because I'm guessing they're going to talk about the rest of the family history. And Veronica. All right. And Ali and his parents are all lactose intolerant. Veronica's brother Angel and her father Jose, they're not lactose intolerant, but their mother Elizabeth is. All right. One thing it doesn't tell you in the problem, and hopefully I told you in class, is that Veronica also is not lactose intolerant. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, so let's just make a key. All right. So in this case, if you're shaded in, that means you're affected. So we're going to call this lactose intolerant. Man, I'm running out of room quick. Male. And this way, let's just do an abbreviation. Lactose intolerant female. And then if you're not shaded in, all right, that would just be normal male and normal female. Squares are male, circles are female. All right. Now, in the problem, it tells us that Ali is lactose intolerant, which means that we need to shade his box in. And Veronica is not. All right. So then, and by the way, if they're about to have a baby, we're going to have that horizontal line, and we could just put a question mark right here because they're about to have one. All right, but not yet. So then let's look at Ali's family history. Ali and his parents are all lactose intolerant. It doesn't say anything about siblings. If it did, I would draw like a line up here and go to the left, but since it looks like he's the only one, I'm going to draw a line that goes up, and I'll draw his mom and dad here. All right. And since they both have lactose intolerance, we're going to shade them in as well. All right. Then it says Veronica's brother. All right, if that's the case, we're going to put the brother right over here. And his name, by the way, so let's start naming people. So this is Ali. This is Veronica. Angel is Veronica's brother. We don't have names for Ali's parents, so you necessarily don't have to write anything right there. But since they're brother and sister, we're going to draw not a line across. Right, that's only for Ali and Veronica. All right, a line up and then a horizontal line here. So this shows that they're siblings, and then that's all going to connect to their parents. All right. So then if I read on, it says that it looks like her father, Jose, is not lactose intolerant either, but their mother, Elizabeth, is. So I'm going to shade in Elizabeth right here. All right. So I've made my pedigree right now. I think this looks pretty good. All right, but I want to be able to use, the whole reason I'm doing it is not to just be like, hey, here's your family tree, but to actually use it to determine the genotypes of everyone. And this is where this helps out a lot with this key. Is that if I have someone who's shaded in, I know that that's going to be, they're going to be affected. And then so the question is, well, it's going to be lactose intolerant. And again, in your sheet, it'll be written here, but lactose intolerance is autosomal recessive. So I might even make a key over here. So lactose intolerant. The allele for that is recessive. I'm going to make an A. You could do another letter if you'd like. And then lactose intolerant, and then lactose tolerant is dominant. So big A. All right, so I'm going to use this and apply it to my pedigree. There's some things that I automatically know, right? So for instance, if I'm lactose intolerant right here, All right, that's the recessive allele. In order to express that trait, in order to have that phenotype, you would have to have both recessive alleles. So anyone who's shaded in, I'm automatically little a, little a. Elizabeth, there's not a whole lot of room. Maybe I'll just draw it. No, I'll still draw it here. Little a though. All right. And then if you're not lactose intolerant, well, in that case, we know automatically if you're lactose tolerant, if you can digest lactose, you have to have that dominant allele. Now, we don't know exactly yet what the second allele is going to be, but you know you at least have to have one dominant one. All right. So then, again, we were able to figure this out, not really from the pedigree, but just from each person's phenotype. But now we're going to use the pedigree to kind of fill in the blank of certain things we don't know. Specifically, we want to know Veronica's full genotype in order to solve our Punnett square over here. So it looks like Veronica, all right, she got the big A, so we could look and say, well, you know, where did she get this dominant allele from? All right, could have gotten it from her dad because the dad has this dominant allele. And actually, there's no way that she could have gotten this big A from her mom, Elizabeth. All right. In fact, Elizabeth could have only passed down little a or the other little a, which means that Veronica must be heterozygous, right? Because that's the only thing she could have gotten from her mom. Right? And then it's going to be the exact same thing with Angel, right? They're siblings, right? Elizabeth had to pass down that little a to Angel. Now, what about Jose, right? Well, maybe Jose is homozygous, heterozygous. We don't know enough of his family history, so we could just put a question mark here. And that's okay. We don't always know from our pedigrees. All right, but luckily, the whole goal of this are what are the chances that Ali and Veronica's baby is going to be lactose intolerant? Now, keep in mind, you really want to go to a genetic counselor for something like lactose intolerance, but it's, I think, an interesting concept, and it's a good intro. All right, so let's first start off with, let's draw Ali up here and Veronica over here for our Punnett square. And Ali is little a, and Veronica is big A, little a. So then we could run this Punnett square, and then big A, little a, big A, little a, little a, little a, little a, little a. All right, and that's it. So then for the genotypes, this is talking about my possible genotypes. It looks like I could be either big A, little a, heterozygous, or homozygous recessive, little a, little a. And then if I'm big A, little a, let's see, well, my possible phenotype there, well, if I have the dominant, I would have to be tolerant, lactose tolerant. And if I have little a, well, then it's a possibility that there could be lactose intolerant. So then in terms of the specific ratios, well, it looks like 1/2 are tolerant, right? And the other half are intolerant, or the other half of the possibilities are intolerant. So then in terms of my ratio, it's the exact same thing for my genotype and phenotype. That's not always the case, but in this case it is. All right. So then to answer the question, what are their chances their baby will be lactose intolerant? Well, right here, possible phenotype, it looks like 50%. So I'm just going to add that up here, 50%. All right. Now then the other thing we got to do is, we got to be able to communicate this to someone. Imagine you're the genetic counselor. Again, maybe it's not for lactose intolerant, but it could be for a genetic disorder such as cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, Huntington's disease. All right. We want to be able to communicate how we know the information we do with our client. So here, just describe how you determined Ali and Veronica's genotypes. Make sure that you use these terms. I'll say this, is that the bank's helpful to make sure that you have everything, but honestly, if you're just talking through this stuff, you should almost automatically be using these terms. When I wrote this out, I just kind of wrote it out, and then I realized, like, oh, wow, I used a lot of these, sometimes just twice. All right? So I'm going to kind of lay this out to help us with timing. All right? Because Ali's phenotype is lactose intolerant, all right, we know his genotype is automatically homozygous recessive, little a, right? Like, we did not need to do the pedigree to just know if he's lactose intolerant, little a. All right, and notice I'm already using phenotype, genotype, homozygous recessive, awesome. All right, and then it gets a little bit more complicated with Veronica's because we couldn't just look at Veronica's phenotype and automatically know her genotype. So I said, all right, well, Veronica's phenotype is lactose tolerant, which means she must have at least one dominant allele, right? So that's that one dominant allele right here, right? Okay. And then we know that Veronica's mother is homozygous recessive, little a. Notice that I've used that term again. So little a, little a. All right. And then so Veronica had to get a recessive allele from her mother, making her heterozygous. Right? That's how we know she has that little a right there. She got it from her mom. And notice that was something that we've already reasoned through, right? That's just the ability to communicate it with the proper vocabulary as well, explain that information. Right? Because we use models to predict, but we also use models to explain. So we kind of have all that going on right here. So hopefully this was a helpful introduction of going through this process. Good luck working on the rest of your appointments as a genetic counselor.